Good afternoon and welcome to the third in a series of Snap Learning sessions today here at Family Business United. I'm delighted to be joined here by Steve Clarke, who is a director and co-founder of Freeman Clarke, who deliver and offer family businesses strategic resources to help them deal with the system challenges that those businesses face. So Steve, let me hand over to you to introduce yourself and explain a little bit more about the work that you do, and we can come back with some questions at the end.
Cool, great. Thank you, Paul. Hi there, I'm indeed Steve Clarke. I'm the co-founder of Freeman Clarke, and I'm going to be with you for about the next 10 minutes. By trade, I'm a CTO and CIO, having spent many years in corporate life, but we created Freeman Clarke in 2012 to provide CTOs and CIOs to businesses in the mid-market and SME sector who didn't need and didn't want a full-time person, but could really do with some strategic advice and guidance around their technology. We provide these fractional and part-time CIOs and CTOs to clients throughout the UK and also now on the East Coast of the US. And we're the largest business doing this. We've got over 130 clients and 60 odd CIOs and CTOs throughout the UK. I think it's really clear that over the last short while, significant change has happened, and it's radical change. And interestingly, what's happened is it has happened really easily. And if we think back over the last 20 years or so, this is not the only time when radical change has happened. And it has to happen for very good reasons. You know, let's think about the introduction of electricity or the impact of terrorism on travel and banking and architecture. And, you know, on tube strikes as well. London can come to a grinding halt with a tube strike. And the output of that is quite often a 5% increase in home working on a long-term basis. And like many requirements for radical change, business owners are often unprepared to handle this change of circumstances. But many CEOs can scramble and deal with the change and then find another gear or pivot smartly to entirely something else. And they'll be the ones who'll survive and thrive. In the new normal, post-pandemic, or even in the latter stages of the final stages of the pandemic, the main support of a change in gear, a pivot or a scramble will be technology. And those that recognize that technology is the major enabler of that new normal will probably be the ones who are most likely to survive. Only the other day, the government announced that they would be launching a new digital strategy because Oliver Dowden, the digital secretary, believes the tech sector will be at the heart of the UK's economic recovery following the coronavirus crisis. What this has demonstrated to us as we observe the seismic shocks going through our clients and the wider community is this: rapid change is possible, but only with the right leadership. Our clients that show greater resilience are those that have adjusted quickly to the external effects of lockdown, managed to rework their business so their people could work from home, and then moved on to consider their future, already looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, it was a scramble, and to make sure the infrastructure would support everyone suddenly working from home. But most of our clients manage this. And from feedback we've had is the majority of infrastructure has enabled people to do this. But it's a salutary lesson for some in recognizing the importance of some of the more lowly parts of the infrastructure that support the business. Assuming that the light at the end of the tunnel isn't an oncoming train, now is the time, though, to review your company and particularly your technology. It may be preventing you from innovating and embracing that rapid change that keeps you alive and well in this changing environment. And it's the case that it might also be the technology itself that needs to be the subject of rapid change if it's not allowing you to do that yourself. We saw during the early part of the crisis that where there was a will, there really was a way. And this can continue, but potentially in a slightly more controlled manner. I mean, innovation is just a matter of leadership. And it's about establishing a collective desire for change and making the resources available to managers focused on immediate attention. There are the companies in the US that do their skunk works, which are teams outside of the normal process that do this innovation. And that's sometimes the way to do it. You know, the businesses that come out smiling at the end of all this will be those who've had the necessary systems, infrastructure, and flexibility to be constantly innovative. Now, what we've actually seen over the last few months is that, developed economies have workforces that are increasingly composed of knowledge workers, and these workers can work anywhere. But also that clients of ours that are going to thrive in the new normal had already moved towards a landscape of flexibility. They already enabled the employees to work when and where they wanted, and they've become much more outcome driven than task driven. So out of this, data and the ability to measure output has become far more important to them, and performance is no longer about the completion of tasks, it's about the output instead. This is a radical change for many in leadership positions, but it's something that has to be adjusted to. But to support that in terms of the leadership, it means the systems need to be able to deliver and provide the information in the right format and at the right time with minimal data wrangling. I mean, many systems may not be set up to do this, but if a flexible working arrangement is here to stay, then the systems need to deliver for the leaders. They need the data accessible to enable them to make the right decisions. Processes clearly that were fit for purpose in the office frequently need radical change to work for a distributed office. People can no longer just pop round to see somebody, get a signature on a physical document. That just becomes a lot harder and involves the post office. And how many times have we heard that a process has to work a certain way, but suddenly with all this working from home, the process gets changed and it still works. Now, once processes are changed, it's often a far better process with fewer wrinkles and a little fewer of the one-offs or tweaks that are required. And this standardization of processes either makes it an easier process to outsource or to put automation in place. So, both of which remove drudgery from a team's day-to-day working, but enable an improvement in efficiency and effectiveness of the team. So the ability to outsource and put in robotic process automation is a clear new activity that can be done because of the re-engineering of processes, because of the home working. And the tech really is replacing the physical. Digital is replacing paper, and video conferencing has definitely replaced most face-to-face meetings. But none of this is actually new. It was just the barriers to mass adoption are no longer there. But there's no excuse, and those excuses aren't going to come back anytime soon. These systems are here to stay. And I know it's hard to be on an endless session of conference calls and people are getting zoomed out. But from feedback, it's clear, and from feedback, it's clear that the face-to-face does matter. So I don't think the office is going to go away, but the use and function of that office will definitely change. We know of one client who's abandoning their office altogether for the long term, but they have a business model and the technology that's enabled that to happen. Others will have to go back to a more traditional model because the technology doesn't allow it for the long term. But we're not seeing anybody rushing back to the office because they're restricted and they're finding it a real downer on business. Most businesses have continued to function without everyone in the office. Let's face it, online has gradually been replacing offline for the last 25 years. But this pandemic really has put rocket fuel in that, and to create massive acceleration, and the internet has won. Everything can be done online. Maybe some things will return, but we're seeing the impact on the high street right now. And again, the old excuses have crumbled away. So our clients, what they've said to us is they never want to be caught in a situation where customers dry up because they can't make the purchase they want to, because the route they want to take is blocked and there are no other options. So they're asking us to drive a digital platform integration back into their business so that they have the ability to go what's known as omni-channel to their customers. The retail activity must concentrate on an online offering, enabling customers to buy in any way they please. It's not, you don't have an option here anymore. Your business must have an online operation and have it supported properly. And this goes for retailers particularly, but I think every type of business should be growing some form of online offering. We're seeing, transportation delivering an online offering. We're seeing aggregators who are bringing together building materials. They're having an online offering. It's across the whole piece. And really, if you want to continue to operate, that online offering and the ability to be in the digital sphere and provide a full service to your customers, or at least allow them to operate, interact with you online, is an absolute requirement.
Steve, it's interesting you say that the online is obviously booming. I'm not sure that PC on your slide is going to last very long. Actually, it's hanging over the edge a little bit for my liking, to be fair. But I think what you're saying, but what you're implying, and I think we've seen it with the family business community, is actually those that had a good online presence have got better, and those that didn't have an online presence are having to build one quite quickly and then automate. But why do you think people haven't innovated in the past? What's stopped them?
Because comfort. I think there has been a level of, we're doing well enough. Well, I mean, I know of one client where they looked at an online offering, but what they found was that it would cannibalize another revenue line. So they didn't bother doing it, even though it would have only cost them £5,000 to get it up and running and a couple of £100 a month. They decided not to do it because at that time they saw it cannibalizing other revenues. Yeah. But now, you know, with everybody out of the office and working from home, you know, there is an ongoing, customers want to be able to engage with their retailers or the companies they work with on any method they choose. And they'll, you know, it's like water going through a river, a mountain stream. You know, the water just finds its way around the rocks. And if you're a rock rather than a channel, you're going to just be gone round, and they'll find somebody else who's got an easier way to provide them with what they want. Yeah. One thing you don't want to happen is for somebody to go, oh, that's just too difficult. I cannot do that form or ring them up. I'm just going to do it another way. So, you know, the ease of interaction with the customer is incredibly important now.
Yeah, and I guess the facet for you is there's two streams really to the IT world for me. One is making that customer experience as easy and simple as possible to make them buy, and they do buy and complete the transaction. And then there's the working from home piece with security and the whole systems engagement, security access, and data, and all that comes with that, which was a huge mountain for many to climb.
Absolutely, and I'll touch on the security aspect a little bit later. But there are the basics of technology you need to get right. You know, you can't build a house on sand. So, you know, there is the basic operating level of technology you need to get right first. It's very boring, but if that's not right, you can't build the exciting and interesting layers on top, the way you can engage with and work with your customers very much closer and make it all sticky, a sticky proposition. So you need to build the technology up in layers. Moving on, it's interesting, a very boring layer of technology is contingency planning and making sure the basics of technology continue to work, whatever the circumstances. But there's much more to it than just making sure you've got a couple of internet connections and the data backup. Not relying on a single source for critical suppliers and which suppliers to use, whether that's onshore or offshore, is important now. And finding out which routes to market are missing and implementing them so they're never unable to sell or engage with customers or clients. In addition, globalization and mass personalization are likely outcomes. So, I think we're going to see a mixture of companies wanting to take goods from offshore, but also have goods coming locally as well, and making sure they've got options. They don't want one supplier anymore. They want the option to go to 2 or 3 other suppliers. And that omni-channel in and omni-channel out is going to add to the complexity of the whole business. From securing the business, from a point of view now, people are working from home. It's harder to keep protection systems up to date. People's guards are down. Hackers are finding it easier to get past and persuade and cajole and things like that. And the processes that were working in the office are now at breaking point. So everything's stretched. So the way, securing the tech is vital, but if you don't keep people aware of the threats and train them, then there's going to be a problem. So, spend the money on training people and making sure they're kept up to speed with the threats out there. That's the biggest bang for your buck. But also get somebody to come in and do a threat analysis and do a penetration testing on your environment. And that enables you to concentrate quite narrowly on the stuff that's going to be the best fix for you. So really, if you're going to thrive in the new normal, you need to embrace radical change. You need to make sure your systems are integrated. Don't have people data wrangling between systems. And those systems, the systems you implement should be able to automate the processes that you have and enable you to outsource or utilize robotic process integration. And I can't emphasize enough the digital side of it, as we just discussed.
Yeah.
And that omni-channel to both supplier and customer, that is something that people are really interested in now, but it makes a much more complex business to operate, and that has to be in integrated systems, so the technology gets more complicated. But it also needs to be within a wholly secure environment, and one that is safe for your people to work within. Now, we've got a whole load of stuff on this in our knowledge centers that's easily available to everybody. You may need to enter your email address, or we can pass it on to people if they're interested. So, there's far more in there for people to have a look at and choose to download information, and on our ongoing series of briefings and CEO guidance is all on our knowledge center. But, as far as that goes, it's a whistle-stop tour through this stuff. But really, technology is going to be key to people's success going forward, properly integrated systems and using it to be ambitious.
Steve, that's fascinating for me. And you've managed to take a topic that I know a lot of people find quite hard to digest and made it quite a positive, and you've put a really positive spin on the topics that actually they do need to address, and they all know they need to address, but actually it's maybe not always top of the agenda, but it's becoming, I guess it's becoming nearer and nearer, if not top of the agenda already, given what we've been through.
Yes.
What's just one parting question in terms of bringing things to a close? What's the one piece of advice you would give a family business owner today that if they haven't done already, they should think about?
I think it is two parts to it, really. The process optimization, mm-hmm. followed by integration of the systems. And, almost all the clients we see and all the prospective clients we go to see, their systems don't work together. There's always an element of manual activity between them, and that often comes back to the processes that were put down in year dot when Fred was with the company, and the process was written in an emergency because we needed one, and those have gone on year out. Fred's left, you don't know why it's that way. Yeah. And the systems don't quite talk properly to each other, so data isn't quite as good quality as it could be, and the speed of response isn't as good as it could be because the systems don't integrate. So get the processes sorted, sit down with the senior management team, review every single process and simplify it, then work on integrating the systems you do have to enable the drudgery of day-to-day process to move out of the system.
Yeah, fantastic. Lots of opportunity. Steve, that's fantastic. We will be actually sharing some of your resources online through the FBU platform as well. So
fantastic.
Anyone that's looking for any more information around the topic of IT and security and things, there'll be some more information in our knowledge centre too. So Steve, all I can say is thank you for your time today, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you very much.